Welcome to Our Thoughts Tonight. Join us as we chat in a mellow mood about music, philosophy, psychology, and anything else that will come to mind. Enjoy.
Our Thoughts Tonight.
Our Thoughts Tonight. Welcome, everybody.
Ashik is here.
Hello.
And I'm your host, Alex Trebek.
Alex Trebek. I want a lot of different stuff. So tonight we're talking about AI. We're talking about academic elitism. We're talking about...
Maybe Ukraine.
Yeah, right. I know I'm going to hit on the STEM, fields a little bit. So we're going to be catching up a little bit, hitting some recent events and all that. So yeah, but before all that, I think we should go into Crucium Sanctum.
As always, Crucium Sanctum. We're back on Our Thoughts Tonight.
Our Thoughts Tonight. So yeah,
Patrick bet David.
Oh yeah, we're talking about that. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
No, sure, why not? He's kind of a joke.
Yeah, I don't know too much about him. I've seen clips of him talk and stuff, but he seems very. He reminds me of what's that guy's name? Jesse Lee Peterson, was it?
Who's that?
Not Jesse. Who's the guy who he calls everybody a beta or whatever. He's like an old black guy. He's very, very conservative.
Yeah.
I think it is Jesse. No, is it Jesse Lee?
No. Man.
He's like, yeah, he calls everybody. Yeah, I think he interviewed Kyle. Was it Kyle? No, he interviewed Destiny at one point, like years ago, and he's like, Destiny, that's a girl's name, huh? Or something.
Thomas Sowell, is that the guy you're talking about?
No, he's this guy is like senile almost. Like he's obsessed with like men acting like women or whatever. Like he's like, it's a big problem or something for him. But he the Patrick dude or whatever reminds me a lot of him because it's just like it's not intellectual in any way. I mean, it's not like it's going to be intellectual at all.
Sure.
But there's no veneer of it either.
Does Patrick bet David claim to be an intellectual?
I don't know too much about him, but from the clips I've seen, I don't get that impression at all. Yeah, it's Jesse Lee Peterson. This dude, beta male.
Oh yeah. That guy's like completely irreverent. I think it's a joke. I honestly think he's a joke because it's like he's kind of insane. Yeah, he makes no sense.
So yeah, I guess like the main topic tonight is
ChatGPT, artificial AI. Intelligence, and it's kind of I think for the first time that we can see in any like in an extremely disruptive way like ChatGPT. I never thought I would see Google shaking in their boots. My entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't used it. I think I saw my brother-in-law use it. I'm not sure if that was the same program, but I mean, I don't know. Isn't like Google has so much like historical, almost like just it's the incumbent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I don't know if
they're still very powerful, but they've got to figure something out now because everyone. I mean, I've been saying this for years. Like search is awful right now. I don't know if you're like. If you notice that too, but you can't search for anything without getting 1,000 ads and a bunch of irrelevant topics. Yeah, that's true. But ChatGPT, I don't know too much about it. It's just like, it's more of a not questionnaire, but like you can't like look up. I think we were talking about before. You can't look up articles. You can't like research essentially. Not yet, but if you've seen, and it comes with its own set of problems, obviously, because of the biases. But we'll get into that. Yeah, but also. It is more functional in the Bing version of it, because Microsoft invested $10 billion into it, and now they've joined it with Bing, and they're letting journalists trial run it, essentially, and it like sources articles, and I mean it's pretty amazing. It looks pretty great. Yeah, it's gonna also probably be contentious as well because people are gonna start trying to monopolize and so on, as always. But that's not the AI's fault necessarily. It's the people. It's capitalist ventures and everything else, and just capitalism in general. I remember on my vacation recently, we did use some sort of like AI question chat thing. It might have been ChatGPT actually. I remember asking. Did it look like this? It was something. Yeah, that's it. That's definitely ChatGPT then. Yeah, I remember asking like.
It was like critiques of philosophers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to see how accurate it could be or how good the critiques could be.
Let's try it. Give me the most complex philosophical question you can think of.
A question. I was thinking philosopher. Oh, okay,
or whatever. Yeah. Give me a complicated or more in-depth philosophical question, and let's ask ChatGPT.
Okay. Oh shit. Okay. I guess I can do something for my thesis or something regarding it. Okay. It's not too complicated. Can you keep the principle of the identity of indiscernibles while getting rid of substitutivity?
Getting rid of substitutivity. All right, let's ask. Okay, so can you keep the principle of identity of indiscernibles while getting rid of substitutivity? Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. Yes, it is possible to maintain the principle of identity of indiscernibles while rejecting the principle of substitutivity. The principle of identity of indiscernibles, PII, states that if two objects have all the same properties, then they are identical. In other words, if two things are indiscernible in all respects, then they must be the same thing. The principle of substitutivity, on the other hand, states that if two expressions refer to the same thing, then they can be substituted for one another without changing the truth value of the sentence in which they appear. The principle is sometimes called Leibniz's law of identity.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
There's more too, but I'm not going to go on. Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's it's a contentious question. I think that's crazy.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's a dude.
Yeah, it's cool. It obviously has its downsides, but
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like this.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Can you like respond to the same thing?
Yeah.
Be like, okay, how should I word this? Because the reality of it is that it's true, but it needs to be specific as to what kind of property acquisition it's talking about. So be like, I don't know how to question that. Like,
let's say
I don't want to say encoding. I want to make it say encoding.
You missed a part.
Yeah.
It says, I apologize for the mistake. Let me try to provide a more complete answer to your question. If they can eventually incorporate all of the possible like academic literature in this, that would be insane. It would be such a great tool. That would be cool.
I remember when we did this in Washington or whatever, I looked up critiques on Husserl, and it was like very generic, like kind of mundane critiques. And I was like, I don't even know if this is really even accurate. Because it was like one of the things was one critique against Husserl is that he can be very like subjective or too in the subjective sphere of things, and like kind of, but like not really. Like that's not what Husserl would say, you know. So it's not complete. I guess this just came out, right?
Yeah, so I mean they've been working on it for a few years, but this is the first version.
Yeah,
they've made it public. Maybe I think in November, maybe a little bit earlier.
Okay,
but. Yeah, this is essentially the research version. They give you a disclaimer saying that your feedback is helping us improve.
Right.
It's not like live yet. They do allow you to upgrade to Plus right now, which doesn't have any other different features, but it gives you like faster response speed because sometimes it's so packed that it won't respond to you. And if you're like using it for something, you're like, oh shit,
Yeah. Okay, wait. That's cool. But it's just, man, it's weird though. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I mean, internet was already weird, but now it's getting that's insane. I don't know.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's really helpful. People are talking about the biases and stuff. Like, what do you think about that?
The bias? Implicit bias and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, there has to be some sort of like quote unquote vetting process, I guess. I'm not even sure. How do they actually even determine this stuff? It depends on who's actually in charge of this, right? And
it's
and also the sources that they're getting
it. Which I think Elon Musk had a part in starting at one point, but it was meant to be open, open source or whatever it's called.
It also depends on like what sources are available online anyway, and what's like at the top or whatever. I'm sure because even if there was like no implicit bias or whatever, there's like not everything's online, and that's probably going to affect it somehow. And I actually wonder, in terms of like academic like sources, like if it will have access to all academic sources, or if they're going to be like behind paywalls or.
I mean, they are behind
journals.
paywalls now, so it's probably not going to. But what you can do is, and in fact, I do this. I read so much research literature right now for classes that I copy the entire article after I've read it. and I ask it to summarize it for me, so to see if I understood the
this?
points. Yeah,
that's cool.
Or I'll take like the results because there's the results are arguably the most important part of the article, but also the easiest thing to confuse and get wrong.
Yeah,
but so I feed that into there, and I make sure that maybe I check to see if I understood it.
If you miss anything.
But sometimes it misses things too.
Yeah.
This version, at least, it gets things wrong. So you kind of have to be aware and challenge it. But if you challenge it, it corrects itself, which is crazy.
God, that's weird.
Which kind of gets into the conversation a little bit of like, I guess this is a conversation we've had like 1,000 times. But at what point does something have its own subjective experience?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I feel like my answers has changed since last time. Well, I think it's still the same, but I think like, I don't know, I've started like viewing everything much more phenomenologically. And like, I know in the past, like, well, I don't know, like, I think there's two different like approaches you can take, at least philosophically. There's like the metaphysical route you can take with that, and then like the phenomenological route you can take with that. Metaphysically, I feel like it's not too hard to be like, oh, it's almost there. AI is almost there to have subjective experiences. Phenomenologically, I don't think it's anywhere near, or if it's ever going to get there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, are you talking about like ChatGPT having like its own, like,
I know people like to talk about that, but I'm starting to think that it's just, I don't know if it's confusing, because one aspect of me sees like the computational theory of mind that's really popular, and think of it, and it makes sense to a certain degree that we are just computing things. So what's the difference between this thing? Besides the fact that maybe it doesn't have emotions, allegedly. That's what it's potentially programmed to think or say.
See, I think so. I think that's where the phenomenological parts come into play. Like in phenomenology, there's like it kind of depends on which phenomenologist you're talking to, but there usually is two different ways to approach like the world. Like in Husserl, there's like, you can kind of approach it in a scientific way. Yeah, right. But most of us live in like something called a life world. Heidegger, you have like being at hand and present at hand and ready to hand. With Buber, you have an a thou it relation. The point is, there's different like ways to relate to the world. So like if a robot or whatever, an AI is analyzing something, like for example, if we're like talking about the human organism as like a mechanism, like, oh, it takes in objects, or it understands things and it analyzes it or whatever, and it's very, quote unquote systematic, the brain and the body and everything. That perspective is only one different perspective. There is a sense of like the human actually like living in a different sense, in a natural. It's not hard to put into words. Like for example, right, the phrase like I know a person, like I know Joe, right? I don't know, what does that actually mean? It's going to connect, but like I don't know Joe in the same sense that I know a math theory or whatever. I know him on a personal level, right? And that kind of relation of this personal relation, this non-objectifying relation, I don't think it's capable of any sort of AI. I think an AI possibly might be able to have an it relation of like talking about data or understanding data, or maybe even like being cognitive of it somehow. Like that might be possible, but I don't think it's ever going to be like truly experiential in the sense that a human is. Like it's not. Like, I can't.
Why wouldn't it be though? Because if it has a capacity for memory, which this one, like if you had an hour-long conversation and you referred back after an hour to the beginning of the conversation, it remembers it. But if you have a database memory that can hold, let's say, multiple lifetimes worth of information, who's to say that it couldn't recall things or people?
No, memory is fine. I mean, for example, I can analyze Joe too, but I guess what I mean by the thou distinction, Heidegger doesn't really fit here too much, but like, or a Husserlian life world, like the AI is never gonna like take the world as. It can analyze things. It can store memory. It can focus in on information. But I feel like it's very hard to really let the AI just be itself without that going on. So that's kind of what I mean by the whole life world thing. Is like we constantly live our lives like not actually focusing on anything specifically, or like we're cognizing it to a certain extent. But it's not like we're like object oriented, like analyzed people all the time, whereas I think an AI will constantly always be that. Like it's hard to like imagine like a computer just like, just chilling essentially.
Yeah. Just doing nothing.
Yeah, just doing nothing, or like, or another way to put it is like, if you're talking to someone, and like there's two different ways you can talk to someone, right? You can like talk to someone and you want to like get something out of them, right? You're object oriented. You're focusing on the decisions you make, what you say. You're focusing on your next words. You have goal orientation. I want this from them. Or you talk to a person like very naturally, like just letting it. You're not even conscious of it essentially. Whereas an AI, I think by definition, is always calculating very quote unquote intently, even that if you can even use that word. Yeah, I think in that sense, I don't think it's ever going to get to an experiential state.
It wouldn't need to,
It wouldn't need to, but
it doesn't have at least, I think we do, because there's a physiological benefit to our brain that it benefits from rest or just being lazy. And like that, I think kind of has, kind of is tied with our like creativity, you just kind of let your mind wander. I don't think, because computers or artificial intelligence don't necessarily have to do that.
Yeah.
But then again, screensavers, it's essentially just a computer chilling.
Yeah. Well, then it gets fuzzy in terms of interpretation of what you mean by like chilling. Because I guess, because like, I don't know. I think the whole, it's just different. Because in the sense of like an actual experience, like for example, I guess I won't go phenomenology, but like another metaphysical route to take is like is the computer ever going to have like qualia or like qualitative experience? Like, sure, it seems like it. You can use your inductive logic and like, okay, it seems like it. It's responding like a human would or whatever. But like, I'd be very suspicious, at least in terms of technology right now, if there's an actual like, experiential state. There's nothing indicating that it would. It just seems like it on the surface.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think completely. Metaphysically you could get to that point, but I don't think we're there at all.
I think there are definitely questions to raise, but I think really the big thing is that people anthropomorphize artificial intelligence.
Yeah, where it doesn't need to be essentially. But it seems like it, and that'd be it. That'd be enough for some people.
Should we take a break?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm done.
All right, we'll be right back on Our Thoughts Tonight.
Our Thoughts Tonight.
We are back on Our Thoughts Tonight.
Our Thoughts Tonight.
And we're talking about ChatGPT and the emergence of AI in all of our lives over the last generation, or recently, I guess, last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask, what do you think are the political implications for this so far?
I'm guessing you're talking about biases, right?
Biases and obviously there's like techno-colonialism, which people don't really, it's not even a contemporary topic to talk about as it is, but not nearly as frequently as it should be, in my opinion.
I mean, obviously it depends on, we were talking about this, I think, off air, but like obviously who's in charge of ChatGPT, where the sources are coming from, where it's,
Sorry, it's not picking up your voice.
What sources are actually even available, for it to get. Obviously, there's paywalls, or even if some things aren't even online yet. Like I can imagine. I mean, there's published journals out there for different types of things that are not as frequent or not as like upper tier as others. So I wonder if, and usually, like for example, a paper I was working about last semester. Was actually from like an African philosophy journal. I don't think that would be anywhere on the radar, for example, for ChatGPT. So yeah, I mean, and that's that can have connotations of racism or connotations of different cultural biases for sure.
Do you think it'll favor like liberal American perspectives, like the corporate media essentially?
I don't know. I mean, the inclination is but I guess we'll have to wait.
Or hegemonic mindset.
Yeah, I mean it might like have some. Again, I'm still confused as to how the critiques work, but it might be a little critical, but I don't think nowhere to the same extent as like it's not gonna pull a Noam Chomsky and be like, all presidents since World War II are guilty by Nuremberg war trials. But like,
by default it won't. But if you right now, if you ask it to answer this from an anarchist perspective or answer this from the perspective of a communist or perspective of Noam Chomsky, it does, but not by default.
Yeah. So I guess what is the default then? That's the question.
Yeah, that's really what I'm asking, I guess. And it seems to be just like run of the mill stuff.
Yeah. Well, again, like I think they kind of. I mean, if it's run of the mill stuff, then that's more of a question of like what's run of the mill, and that doesn't even go with ChatGPT. That's just like that can go into academia too, or whatever medium. Like what's the run of the mill? So it's gonna be reflective of, I don't want to say reflective of the culture around it, but reflective of where the sources are coming from, and if the sources are coming from and all the people developing it are from a certain worldview, it's gonna reflect that somehow.
STEM majors.
We were
talking about earlier. And
it
is AI, artificial intelligence is what is it called when there's we should ask ChatGPT this question. Interdisciplinary study. It's a interdisciplinary study, so you've got different fields. Yeah. But probably the majority of them are STEM or, liberal arts, like psychology, philosophy.
People who develop ChatGPT? People who develop ChatGPT?
I don't know about the developers of ChatGPT, but I know that there's more than likely cognitive scientists working.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. I don't. There's probably a few, like, I'm trying to think, like, philosophers. I mean, like, Daniel Dennett comes to mind. He wouldn't work on anything like this, but possibly. I mean, I think, obviously STEM is part of it. I think some sort of business major is going to be a part of it. I mean, like, a large part of, like, business degrees have like AI components now that they're studying, and that kind of shows a little bit of like where the biases may lead to if you have people who are obsessed with like
economics.
Be part of it, because that is a whole industry. I mean, that's been on the rise. Even at UAA, even there they really recently developed a whole AI lab. So
really?
So that's, I think STEM and business areas are top, and cognitive science as well. But I don't know. It's going to reflect those people.
What are your views on academic elitism? Like, we were talking about this earlier before we started the podcast.
I only really hate. Well, I don't know, hate, but like, I see more of it as a problem through STEM, and maybe that's like my own bias, but like, that's like the number one. When it comes to like the humanities or liberal arts, like there are like, elitists in general, but I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like a really elitist ethics guy, at Harvard or whatever is bad. Sure, he's gonna probably have a really weird.
It's funny, I've had an experience.
With
one of my professors.
Called
me un-American.
Right. And I think
he's a Harvard professor.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Oh, I forgot.
He wasn't a professor, but he's a Harvard grad.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah, no. Off there. That reminds me.
I'm not going to dox the guy.
Yeah, it's like, that's pretty bad. But I feel like the academic elitism in terms of STEM, I think, is more understated and more dangerous. I guess I'm not sure about dangerous, but I think it's more. Yeah, I think more dangerous. Like everyone talks about like. When we think of academic elitists, we don't think of like we usually think of that like we usually think of the liberal arts guy. At least in my mind, that's what comes up, and I don't think that's really the problem. I think the problem is actually like the elitists, or again, my bias is showing, but like the whole inclination towards STEM and what that implies as to society as a whole. Like no one talks about like the elitist scientists at whatever, and it's not a critique at science; it's a critique at like the person who goes into it, the person who like teaches it or whatever. And I think that's much more dangerous because like, one, that's less funding for liberal arts. That's opening wide the doors of economic disparity too.
I think liberal arts people like humanities are considered liberal arts, right? And like even like criminal justice, psychology, like those type of non-engineering, non-business. Even business is considered liberal arts, I think, but let's say if you're not in engineering or business or chemistry or physics, hard science or business. So if you're not trying to make money, essentially, nowadays there is a criticism of your degree, which is ironic considering the fact that that's why higher education was invented in the first place. To just become a better citizen.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I think the real. Well, yeah, that's stuff. Yeah, exactly. And I think like
not that those people can't be academic elitists themselves, but
no, yeah, absolutely. But it's just like it's also the I don't know of any statistics or anything. I'm sure there's some study done, but like I'm sure there's a lot more right wingers that you could say in those fields than not. I mean, like for example, like they talk about like university has a left wing bias. University has a left wing bias. One, that's going to be the case most likely because it's a university. Like by its own nature, it's going to be left wing. But like I think if you look specifically at certain majors, like that might actually not be the case in business or even some hard sciences or whatever.
I've had experience with that. Like being in criminal justice classes, it's like deer in the headlights or whatever. It's definitely you get stares. Yeah.
I mean, it's good that like ethics courses, for example, are required of like business majors or whatever. Like, but that kind of goes to show you, you know what I mean? Like you're taking a business course or a medical course. I mean, I guess with medical it's different, but like especially with business, like you're taking business, you're required to have an ethics class. Like, what the implication of that is saying you be careful. Let's teach you some ethics before you go out there, and like. That kind of, I don't know, kind of says everything to me.
Do you think people miss it? Like do you think they miss the point?
Probably. I mean, if it's like, most likely. I mean, I don't know, but statistics or anything like that. But like, if you're taking like, I don't know, 3-4 normal business classes and there's one business ethics class, like you're probably not going to focus on as much. Oh, it's my required class. Let me get it over with, and then I'm done. I mean, some people don't fall into that trap. Like I had a friend. He was in marketing and he was about to finish his degree, and then he just felt so wrong about it. He's like, I love the human interaction part of it or whatever, but like it just feels so wrong. So he switched to philosophy, and I think that kind of says everything.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for a society that values money so much, you would think that there would be a focus on ethics because people care about it so much, but everyone else is held to ethical standards like doctors and psychologists, and even if you're just trying to do a basic study, you're held to like ethical standards.
Right.
But when it comes to money, it's like a free for all. Yeah.
But also, I mean, I think the thing is clear with money, but then like when it goes to like the hard science and engineering, I think like the trend continues in a different aspect, like because it's at the detriment, I think, of other fields or whatever. Like what's like the stereotype really shit major is gender studies. Like in anything, that's like the stereotype.
People shit on it.
Yeah, they crap on gender studies,
which is ridiculous.
Like again, I never took the class, but I essentially took the class. Long story short, but like super informative, crazy informative. Like it's really in detail. There's nothing funny about it, Mm-hmm. But again,
what is funny about it to people? Like, let's say I think largely conservative, or reactionaries.
Yeah, they probably think gender studies is like, oh, men suck. Here's this and this and that. That's not what gender studies is at all. Gender studies is not even just about gender. I mean, it goes into race a lot too. It's more like social issues in general, and it's not just about women. There are a lot of such about men too.
Yeah, but do you think that's why reactionary conservatives?
Yeah, I mean,
despise that sort of thing.
I mean, part of it's probably because it's centered around women. At least that's like the initial part about it. But another part is, I think part of the whole mindset is that it's not going to get you a job. It's talking about very loose things that don't make that's not like. In terms of methodology, a humanities degree is going to be very different than a hard science degree just by the nature of what it is. Like, it's not a step-by-step math process, not a step-by-step research process. It's a critical thinking, logic kind of mentality that you're in. So just because it's fuzzy and it's loose and it's not, the answers aren't so clear in gender studies or whatever, but that's like the inclination that comes up. Like you talk about something in philosophy too, a STEM major, and it's like it just goes over their heads because it's like it's not the answers aren't easy. There's nothing about it that's like it's a step-by-step process.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why, and there's obviously like, YouTube clips of like, someone like Bill Nye. Like, oh man, I'm kind of jumping around, but like there's that famous talk where like it was like Bill Nye, Richard Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson, or Lawrence Krauss, a few other guys. And so, I like some, I don't like others, but like
they all have their good moments.
They all have their good moments, but they're very much like that's what I'm talking about. I think Richard Dawkins is a pretty respectable philosophy, but like someone like Tyson and Bill Nye, like quintessential stereotype of like
science man.
Yeah, and like they were talking about like consciousness or whatever, and it was like the most like, God, they don't know anything. It was like Tyson was like, what if consciousness is an illusion, which is an actual position you can take, but it's like it's not an accepted solution. It's not an accepted answer. It's one of the outliers. And then like Bill Nye jokes around. He's like, what if he pretends like he's smoking a joint, and he's like, what if we're just thinking that we're thinking? And I'm like, that's an actual legitimate philosophical problem. But it's like, the audience laughs, and all these guys are laughing. It's like that's actually like
thinking that we're thinking. That is pretty interesting.
Yeah, but like that's like
Descartes. What do you call it?
I think that's reflexivity. That's the whole point of reflexivity.
Cogito.
And let alone the whole field of epistemology. So it's just like, I don't know. It pisses me off because it takes, and then someone like Tyson says things like, "Oh, philosophy pretends like it asks really deep questions," and like it kind of does. Like that's kind of the whole point, is that it asks deep questions. Like, yeah, we're not talking about, the nature of a black hole. Okay, like I don't know. The perspectives are different, and yeah, and it's not like the humanities disrespect science or hard sciences. It has no attitude like that towards that, but it's not reversed for the hard sciences of the humanities. So, yeah, it irks me a lot.
I agree. I mean, I completely agree. Yeah, we're gonna take a break, and we'll be right back with some more to talk about.
Our thoughts tonight.
We are back on Our Thoughts Tonight.
Our Thoughts Tonight.
Salve Regina.
Was that a different group singing that?
I don't know. It was just a different piece.
Okay.
It was just like one of those like playlists, like when you're an 18th century philosopher chilling in the dark under candlelight or whatever.
I love the ones where it's like when you're a villain or something, like when you're a villain in the romantic period.
Those
are
so great.
Yeah.
That itself, like those videos. I mean, you could write an entire like phenomenological essay on that, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's maybe phenomenological, but
it's
weird how it's just images and like songs, but they create something else. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, I mentioned this in one of my classes too when we're talking about phenomenology. It all connects. I will say there is a Dungeon Synth album that's the whole theme is that you're kind of like an old Arab or Jewish philosopher from like the Middle Ages. It's called Ein Dulmedir. That kind of inspired Descartes, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's just like, that 25-minute song from Burzum, Rundgang or whatever. Mm-hmm. It sounds like that. It's like dun dun dun, and the album cover is just this really old Middle Eastern dude just going through scrolls, and it's like, oh shoot, that's so cool.
You found it on YouTube?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. You should send it to me.
Yeah, well. But you want to talk about?
So the question of, you see it a lot in news, and I almost like find it to be like a gimmicky news story these days, and it really fits with the ChatGPT thing, where like just like the question of, is AI conscious, or can it become conscious, or has it even become conscious now? I'm not completely discounting it, so take this kind of with a grain of salt, but it's almost an unnecessary question because it's a huge assumption on the fact that we can create anything as intricate and powerful as consciousness, or like through evolution, let's say. Yeah. Whether or not consciousness is a product of evolution, assuming it is.
Yeah. So the
question is like, do you think that question should be criticized? So do you think it's become a little bit gimmicky to ask if AI is conscious?
Oh, a little bit gimmicky. I mean, I think it depends on who's asking, but like, yeah, I mean,
that's another thing. Yeah. Some journalist in the New York Times is trying to get clicks versus a scientist who's doing an actual like low key study on it.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. Like,
or a philosopher.
I guess I am really like I'm really sick of the whole concept of AI. There's something about AI these days. I don't know. Like, I mean, it was fun right now doing ChatGPT, but like there's something about it that kind of makes me really like queasy. I don't know if you've seen those AI generated images at all. Like, they're really
they're kind of weird. Yeah,
they're very cool.
Kind of gross me out.
Yeah, but there are some that like is like I don't know if you've seen those ones, but like I don't know, insert some pop culture thing, a video game or a movie or something, and like the ones I was seeing was like, insert video game in the style of an 80s aesthetic, an 80s aesthetic dark fantasy film. Super cool images, super intricate. I can show you later, and it's awesome. But I don't know. I kept seeing them, and it was just like super like I don't know. After a while, it just made me really fucking queasy.
They make you nauseous.
Yeah, it's just weird. There's something off about it.
I agree. It's almost like
it's not real.
There's like the faces. If you look at the faces, they kind of like have weird structures to them. And like this is the earlier one. I think it was Dolly. It was like there was like weird swirls and stuff on the faces that would just like kind of look really gnarly and make me uncomfortable.
Fucking acid trip.
It's totally like an acid trip. Yeah.
Actually, oh my god. Oh, dude. It's not really AI, but like I guess it goes more technology stuff. There's that show on Netflix. What's it called? Love, Sex, and Robots or something like that. I didn't watch it until.
Is there like a documentary on like sex dolls?
No. It's every episode is apparently different. It's computer animated stuff, but it looks really real. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And was tripping on acid. And it was the weirdest crap on acid.
Really?
It was like.
What the hell are you doing to yourself watching that shit?
No. Well, friend showed me. I didn't know what I was expecting. She was just like, just. I'm not gonna say anything. Just watch it. And I didn't know how to fathom it. I was like, I mean, it's part of the acid, but even when sober, it's super weird. It's like, is it real or is it not?
So what is it though? They're like robots.
No, it's just every episode's like the one I watched was about like knights and like some like sea lady, and there was another one about pirates. Okay. Like, it's just it's just the name of the show, but
I gotcha.
Yeah, but it's super weird, and I feel like, but still, I mean, go back to the whole question of like AI though, of like can they be conscious or whatever. It's like, yeah, I feel like it is kind of an assumption, and it's kind of like jumping the gun a little bit because even if like, I mean, even with philosophy of mind, even for those who do accept the thesis that like. We can make consciousness, like we're nowhere near it. Like that's pretty much a widely accepted answer is like even if it's possible, we're nowhere near it. So it kind of shows a little bit of like human hubris a little bit. So yeah, I mean it's also just like it further shows like the lack of like attention to like the philosophical debate about these things. Mm-hmm. Like there's like philosophy of mind is one of the most. It's pretty much the largest area in metaphysics, which itself is the largest area of philosophy by far, and maybe tie with epistemology. But like, has such a rich academic background that like you can't just like post a journal article about it. Like, oh, maybe it's answering my questions. It's like there is so much depth into it. There's questions of emergence, of selfhood, of consciousness, of qualia.
Back to the fundamental questions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an age old question. So it's like. It goes back to like nous with Aristotle. Like it's a really complicated area. So just like the hypothetical nature of like, oh yeah, can robots be real or AI this, AI that? It's like, dude, like you know what you're talking about, and that's fine. People can like think about that kind of stuff, but like I guess it is clickbaity for sure.
It's for sure clickbaity. Yeah. There was one situation that I saw before we like do final thoughts. There was one situation I saw where a few months ago, I think I mentioned this earlier, with the AI scientist who was fired from Google for saying that he believes, or either he quit or he was fired, I can't remember, but he thought that, he said at least that he thought that Google's AI had become conscious, but he used that as kind of clickbait to have all these journalists from like Bloomberg or New York Times or whatever it was, interview him where he started talking about the consciousness and how it might have become conscious, but then he started talking about techno-colonialism and saying like these things, whether or not they are conscious, have implications on society.
So he tricked them essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome, yeah.
So he was using. He's a very smart guy. Like I urge you to go watch this. Whoever's listening, it's this interview with this AI scientist on Bloomberg Business, on YouTube. Just type in AI Google. But the thing about that is that he's incredibly right, because when you have Henry Kissinger writing books on AI and how it's a modern domain of like colonialism. Mm-hmm. You got to be careful and start paying attention to the implications of this. And I think like you're absolutely right for saying people don't think about the entire rich background of this. And in order to understand how powerful something like this can be, whether it becomes conscious or not, is unimportant. You have to take these things into account. Yeah.
It's not looking good. And people being obsessed with it is also just not healthy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It is a cool tool. I'm not trying to be a Luddite or anything, but
I mean, I think to a certain extent, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like to a certain extent, like, I don't want to plug in Ted Kaczynski again after all these years of not mentioning him. But, like, I think there is something to say about, constantly using technology as well. So
technological singularity.
Yeah. Shout out to the 3rd episode. Lost episodes now. But
they're on there. They're just unpublished.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You'll never know.
The first 2 are lost, I think.
The first one's lost. I think the second one's there. The first one...
It might be on Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah.
I'll have to go look.
Yeah.
But,
it's there somewhere.
Yeah. Should we do final thoughts?
Yeah. Final thoughts. Man, I'm so, like... I love philosophy of mind, but, like, I hate the machine side of things, the AI side of things. It's just, like, I don't know. Like, go take a walk. I don't know. Like, or whatever. I'm not even a person that's out in nature all the time. It's just, like... It's just weird. I don't know. I don't like it.
Definitely. It's strange.
Yeah.
But it's helpful in a lot of ways. I use it periodically, but...
Yeah. No, it's definitely cool. I guess I'm more mad at the people who are obsessed with it, or who are developing it, or who are, like, think so highly of it or something like that. Yeah.
There is definitely... It's just like anything else. It's being turned into a thing.
Yeah. It's a new trend.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, my final thought is follow us on Twitter at Crucem Sanctum or on the link below. And stay tuned for the next episode, and rate us 5 stars on Spotify, whatever. Thanks for listening. Our thoughts tonight.
Our thoughts tonight.
Oh, to write a song that has no meaning at all, that doesn't touch a personal nerve or heed a social call, that knows no up or down, that has no right or wrong, that doesn't need a reason to waste some time with songs just like that old time rock and roll with the easy chords and a touch of soul. Give me old time rock and roll, and I'll sing ba-bop, shabop, then whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh, to sing a song that doesn't let it all hang out, that doesn't wave any flag or have any slogan to shout, that knows no east or west, that has no left or right, that doesn't throw any stones or look for any fight, just like that old time rock and roll with the easy chords and a touch of soul. Give me old time rock and roll, and I'll sing ba-bop, shabop, then whoa, whoa, whoa. Just to write a song that won't mend a broken heart, that won't woo you like a lover or promise a brand new start, that doesn't preach of rain and fire or heed any higher call, that doesn't need a reason to mean nothing at all, just like that old time rock and roll with the easy chords and a touch of soul. Give me old time rock and roll, and I'll sing ba-bop, shabop, then whoa, whoa, whoa. Just like that old time rock and roll with the easy chords and a touch of soul. Give me old time rock and roll, and I sing ba-bop, shabop, bam, whoa, whoa, whoa. Ba-bop, shabop, bam, whoa, whoa, whoa. Ba-bop, shabop, bam, whoa, whoa, whoa.